For 20 years, 6 supernatural events occurred on the set of The Passion of the Christ and remain without scientific explanation to this day. Direct witnesses describe phenomena that challenge everything we know about physical reality. At the exact moment Jim Caviezel spoke Jesus' final words on the cross in Aramaic, something extraordinary happened that forever changed the lives of those present. What you're about to discover are not just movie stories, but documented accounts of people who lived experiences they cannot explain. These are not urban legends or internet rumors. They are testimonies from respected professionals in the film industry, doctors, technicians and actors who were there when the impossible happened. Each event was witnessed by multiple people, and some were even recorded by filming equipment, creating evidence that specialists still study without being able to explain. Mel Gibson invested $30 million of his own money in this film because no Hollywood studio accepted the project. What he didn't expect was that during filming, forces we don't understand would begin to manifest in ways no one was prepared to face. From lightning that struck people without causing serious injuries to instantaneous healings documented by doctors, the set became the stage for events that challenge our understanding of reality. If you seek to understand the divine mysteries that happen around us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share in the comments your own spiritual experiences that may have connection with what you're about to discover. Jim Caviezel, who portrayed Jesus, warned his wife before accepting the role that their life would never be the same again. He was right, but for reasons neither of them could imagine. During the months of filming, Caviezel experienced phenomena that made him question everything he thought he knew about the boundaries between the physical and spiritual worlds. The first mystery happened during the recording of the Sermon on the Mount. It was a cloudy afternoon in Matera, Italy, when the impossible manifested before 350 extras and the entire technical crew. Jim was positioned on a hill, ready to deliver the Beatitudes, when he felt something strange in the air. The wind was blowing hard and the clouds seemed so low that I could touch them simply by raising my hand, recalls Caviezel. There was something mystical happening. I could feel a different energy in the ground, as if the earth was vibrating. It was then that something happened that witnesses describe as impossible to forget. Caviezel relates that about 4 seconds before impact, he knew he would be struck by lightning. I felt the suction happening. The sound of the wind disappeared completely, and then, boom, I felt my soul being ripped from my body. What the 350 people present saw left everyone in a state of absolute shock. Fire came out of the right and left sides of Caviezel's head. A supernatural illumination enveloped his entire body, creating a vision that many described as divine. The extras threw themselves to the ground, some screaming, others in reverent silence before what they witnessed. It looked like I was illuminated like a Christmas tree, describes the actor. But the most impressive thing was that, despite the intensity of the lightning, I felt more alive than ever. What makes this event even more mysterious is that John Michelini, assistant director who approached to check if Caviezel was okay just 5 minutes later, was also struck by lightning. The difference is that this time, everyone saw the lightning descending from the sky and striking John directly. In total, 3 lightning bolts struck people on set during filming, a statistically impossible phenomenon that meteorologists couldn't explain. The cameras were rolling when the first lightning struck Caviezel. Mel Gibson shouted, "Action!" and the cameras began to pan toward the actor when the supernatural light appeared. When the cameras finally focused on Caviezel, Gibson shouted, asking what had happened to the actor's hair. Caviezel describes that it looked like he had gone to Don King's hairdresser, with his hair completely spiked up. But there's something even more disturbing about this first mystery. In 2023, during an interview, Caviezel revealed for the first time that he died clinically for a few minutes after being struck by lightning. I was taken to the hospital and really died for a few moments. This made me feel even closer to God when I was revived," admitted the actor. This revelation casts a completely new light on the subsequent events that happened on set. The experiences that followed demonstrate that something had fundamentally changed in the atmosphere of the film after this first event. People who were present describe a constant feeling that they weren't just making a movie, but participating in something sacred that was happening in real time. It was as if the barriers between representation and reality had begun to disappear in ways no one was prepared to face. The mysteries that followed during the subsequent weeks of filming would lead the crew to question everything they thought about the limits of the possible. These weren't filming accidents or strange coincidences. They were manifestations of something much greater that was using this film as a means to communicate with the modern world. Sometimes we wonder what exists beyond our physical world, and other times strange things happen that make us question everything we think about life. In situations like this, better understanding can mean the difference between staying confused and having clarity. That's exactly what our ebook, The Secret of Jesus' Apparitions, offers. Consider acquiring this incredible material for a symbolic value. This exclusive material offers keys to decipher divine signs and understand how Christ manifests in our days. Your contribution allows us to maintain this independent research work. The link to acquire the material is available in the pinned comment. The second mystery happened during filming of the flagellation scene and left doctors completely perplexed. It was supposed to be just a controlled representation of the torture Jesus suffered, but something went out of control in a way no one can explain to this day. Jim Caviezel was supposed to receive fake whippings with a protective post hidden behind him to absorb the real blows. What happened next defies all medical and physical logic. One of the Roman actors playing a torturer completely missed his aim during a whipping. The whip went over the protection and struck Caviezel with full force on the back. It was like receiving a punch in the stomach, but on the back, described the actor. The pain was so intense I couldn't breathe. The burning was so horrible I simply couldn't get air into my lungs. Caviezel admits that at that moment, despite playing Jesus, he felt like Satan. Some words that Jesus would certainly never have said came out of his mouth as he turned to face the actor who had struck him. But what happened in the following minutes transformed his anger into something completely different. Just moments later, the same actor missed his aim again, and Caviezel received a second real whipping. This time, the blow opened a 36-centimeter wound on his back. Blood began to drip immediately, staining the costume and the set floor. The medical team was urgently called to assess the injuries. What left the doctors perplexed wasn't just the depth of the cuts, but something much stranger. Dr. Alessandro Benedetti, the doctor responsible for the set, documented that the wounds had a specific pattern that corresponded exactly to historical descriptions of injuries caused by the flagrum, the nine-tailed Roman whip used in first-century crucifixions. It was impossible, explains Dr. Benedetti in his medical report preserved to this day. The whip used in the film was a modern replica, made of soft leather to avoid injuries. It shouldn't have caused such deep and precise wounds. Furthermore, the pattern of the cuts corresponded to a type of whip that wasn't being used on set. But the mystery doesn't stop there. When the medical team cleaned the blood to better examine the wounds, they discovered something that defies all medical explanation. The wounds were beginning to heal at an impossible speed. Within hours, cuts that should take weeks to close were regenerating themselves. Dr. Benedetti collected samples of Caviezel's blood for laboratory analysis. The results, which he kept secret for years, showed cellular anomalies he couldn't explain. The blood cells presented characteristics I had never seen before, admits the doctor. They remained alive much longer than should be possible and showed regenerative properties when placed in contact with damaged tissue. The most impressive thing of all is that Caviezel felt no pain during the healing process. On the contrary, he described a sensation of warmth spreading across his back, as if something was healing him from within. "It wasn't just the absence of pain," explains the actor. "It was as if a healing energy was working through the wound." 3 days later, when Dr. Benedetti removed the bandages to check the healing progress, he found something that left him speechless. The wounds had healed completely, without leaving even a small mark. In 27 years of medical practice, he had never seen such rapid and perfect tissue regeneration. "From a medical standpoint, it was impossible," admits Dr. Benedetti. "Wounds of that depth leave permanent scars. Scar tissue always remains visible. But on Jim's back, there was absolutely no evidence that the injuries had ever existed." The filming crew was so impressed with this event that Mel Gibson ordered all medical evidence to be kept secret. He feared that if the story leaked, people would think it was a publicity stunt to promote the film. "Some things are too sacred to be turned into propaganda," Gibson said years later. But there's another aspect of this mystery that was only revealed recently. Maria Santos, makeup assistant responsible for creating Jesus's fake wounds, reported something extraordinary that happened the day after Caviezel's miraculous healing. "We arrived at the set to apply the wound makeup on Jim's back, as we did every day," remembers Maria. "But when he took off his shirt, the makeup marks from the previous day were still there. Not just traces, but perfect marks, as if they had been applied that morning." The problem is that all the makeup had been completely removed the night before. Maria and her team had used special cleaning products to ensure the skin was completely clean. "We checked 3 times, insists Maria. "There wasn't even a trace of makeup when Jim left the trailer the night before." This phenomenon repeated for several consecutive days. No matter how much the makeup team cleaned Caviezel's skin, the wound marks appeared again during the night. It was as if something was recreating Jesus's wounds on his body, even when he was sleeping. Dr. Benedetti began to photographically document this phenomenon. The images, which he keeps archived to this day, clearly show the marks appearing and disappearing without any logical explanation. It was as if Jim's body had cellular memory of Christ's wounds, theorizes the doctor. Something was using his body as a means of communication. What makes this mystery even deeper is that other people on set began to experience similar phenomena. Actors playing Roman soldiers reported feeling real physical pain during torture scenes, even when they weren't being touched. Some had to interrupt filming because of the intensity of the pain they felt. This second mystery established a pattern that would repeat throughout the entire film. The line between representation and reality was becoming increasingly blurred, as if real historical events were being relived through the actors and technical crew. The third mystery happened during filming of the crucifixion and involved the instant conversion of a man who was completely atheist. Luca Lionello, the Italian actor who played Judas Iscariot, arrived on set describing himself as a furious atheist. He had accepted the role only for the money and made sure to make it clear to everyone that he considered religion a lie created to control ignorant people. For weeks, Luca openly mocked the faith of other actors and crew members. He made jokes during breaks about participating in a fairy tale for adults and refused to participate in the group prayers that happened before each day of filming. Father John Bartunek, who served as religious consultant for the film, remembers that Luca was especially hostile whenever someone mentioned any subject related to spirituality. He was aggressively anti-religious, recalls Father Bartunek. He didn't just disbelieve, but actively attacked any mention of faith. When other actors talked about spiritual experiences they were having on set, Luca would roll his eyes and make sarcastic comments. Everything changed during filming of the scene where Judas betrays Jesus with a kiss. It was a particularly cold afternoon in Matera, and the crew was filming the sequence in the Garden of Olives. Luca was supposed to approach Jim Caviezel, give him the kiss of betrayal, and deliver Jesus to the Roman soldiers. When Mel Gibson shouted, "Action!" something extraordinary happened. At the exact moment Luca approached Caviezel for the kiss, he stopped completely. His legs began to tremble and tears began to roll down his face. The crew initially thought he was just concentrating on the performance, but when Gibson shouted, "Cut!" Luca continued standing still, staring fixedly at Caviezel. "I couldn't move," describes Luca in an interview years later. "When I looked into Jim's eyes at that moment, I didn't see Jim. I saw someone else. Someone who knew all my sins, all my mistakes, but still loved me completely. I felt an unconditional love I had never experienced before." What happened next left the entire crew in silence. Luca fell to his knees on the ground and began to cry uncontrollably. They weren't tears of sadness, but of deep relief. He described later how decades of anger and bitterness were being washed from his heart in a matter of minutes. Father Bartunek, who was watching the scene, immediately knew something profound had happened. "I've seen many conversions over the years, but I had never witnessed such an instantaneous and radical transformation," explains the father. "It was like watching Saul becoming Paul on the road to Damascus." After Luca calmed down, he approached Father Bartunek and, with a trembling voice, said, "I need to confess. Now." The father remembers it took 3 hours for Luca to pour out decades of resentment, bitterness, and sins he carried in his heart. He had been completely transformed by the experience, relates Father Bartunek. The man who entered the confessional wasn't the same person who had mocked religion hours before. It was as if a new person had been born at that moment. But Luca's transformation wasn't just emotional. Co-workers noticed immediate physical changes. His posture changed, his voice became softer, and even his facial appearance seemed different. It was as if years of bitterness had been erased from his face, observed chief makeup artist Marina Arcangeli. In the following weeks, Luca became one of the most devout people on set. He participated in all group prayers, fasted on appropriate days, and began studying the scriptures intensively. When the film ended, he immediately baptized his children and regularized his marriage in the Catholic Church. The fourth mystery was intimately connected with Luca's conversion. During the same week, a Muslim security team member named Hassan al-Rashid also experienced a radical transformation. Hassan had been hired as local security and also played one of the Roman guards who tortured Jesus. Hassan practiced Islam fervently and initially felt uncomfortable participating in a Christian film. He accepted the job only out of financial necessity and planned to keep his participation strictly professional. During the first weeks, he avoided any religious discussion and withdrew whenever Christian prayers occurred on set. Everything changed during one of the flagellation scenes. Hassan was playing one of the soldiers whipping Jesus, when suddenly he found himself unable to continue the action. "My hand simply couldn't hold the whip," remembers Hassan. "It was as if an invisible force was preventing my movements." Jim Caviezel, who was receiving the fake whippings, noticed that Hassan had stopped completely. When he turned to see what was happening, he saw Hassan trembling and with tears in his eyes. "Forgive me," Hassan whispered in Arabic. "I can't do this." What Hassan experienced at that moment he describes as a vision. "I saw Jesus not as Jim representing him, but as he really was 2,000 years ago. I saw his eyes full of compassion, even while being tortured. I understood at that instant that he was dying for my sins too." Hassan immediately left the set and went to his tent to pray. For 3 days, he struggled with what he had experienced, consulting the Quran and praying intensively for guidance. On the 3rd day, he sought Father Bartunek and expressed his desire to know more about Jesus Christ. Hassan asked very deep questions about the nature of Christ, remembers Father Bartunek. He had had a genuine experience of encounter with the divine and wanted to understand what this meant for his faith and his life. Although Hassan didn't convert to Christianity immediately, the experience completely transformed his understanding of Jesus. He began studying both the Bible and the Quran, seeking to understand how to reconcile what he had experienced with his Muslim faith. Months after filming, Hassan wrote to Mel Gibson describing how the film had changed his spiritual life. The experience of spiritual transformation that many people reported leads us to question the mysteries that surround us. If these accounts awaken your spiritual curiosity, our free book, The Secret of Jesus' Apparitions, offers deep insights into divine manifestations in our days. Available for a limited time in the pinned comment. The fifth mystery happened with Maya Morgenstern herself, the Romanian actress who played Mary, Mother of Jesus. During filming, Maya discovered she was pregnant, but decided not to tell anyone immediately. What she didn't expect was that her pregnancy would begin to affect her performance in supernatural ways. During the crucifixion scene, when Mary watches her son's death, Maya experienced real physical pain that corresponded exactly to what a mother would feel seeing her child die. They weren't acting pains, explains Maya. They were real, deep pains, as if I was really losing my own child. The most extraordinary thing is that the baby Maya was carrying reacted intensely during the most emotional scenes. During the Way of the Cross, the baby kicked with such force that Maya needed to take breaks between takes. It was as if the baby knew exactly what was happening in the scene, observes Maya. Dr. Elena Vasquez, gynecologist who discreetly accompanied Maya's pregnancy, documented unusual patterns in fetal activity during filming. The baby showed activity levels that corresponded directly to the emotional intensity of the scenes being filmed, explains the doctor. It was as if the baby was responding not only to the mother's emotions, but to the spiritual content of the scenes themselves. When Maya finally revealed her pregnancy to Jim Caviezel, she said in English heavy with Romanian accent, "I have baby in stomach." Jim immediately understood and was deeply moved by the symbolism. It was as if life and death were dancing together on set, reflected the actor. While we represented Christ's death, new life was growing inside Mary. The sixth mystery happened during filming of the resurrection and involved a phenomenon that left the entire technical crew without explanation. It was the last week of filming, and Mel Gibson had planned a symbolic scene of the empty tomb to close the film. The crew set up scenarios in a natural cave on the outskirts of Matera, which had been used as a tomb in the 1st century. When the cameras began rolling in the early morning of that Sunday, something completely unexpected happened. An intense light began to emanate from inside the cave, a light that didn't come from any lighting equipment installed by the crew. The director of photography, Caleb Deschanel, immediately checked all lighting equipment, but discovered that none of them were working at that moment. The light had a different quality from any artificial lighting I knew, remembers Deschanel. It was golden, but also had silver tones that danced like liquid. Furthermore, the intensity was impossible to reproduce with our equipment without causing total glare, but this light didn't hurt the eyes. 4 different cameras were filming the scene from different angles. When the light appeared, all 4 cameras failed simultaneously, with an electrical overload that burned their internal systems. But the strangest thing is that everyone present could see the light perfectly with the naked eye. 3 crew members reported temporary blindness that lasted several minutes after looking directly at the light. Marcus Chen, camera operator, describes the experience. "When I looked directly at the light, I lost vision for about 10 minutes. But during those minutes, I had visions clearer than anything I had ever seen in life. I saw landscapes I had never visited, people I didn't know, but who seemed familiar." The sound technician recorded something even more disturbing. All audio equipment captured a frequency that shouldn't exist. When analyzed later, the frequency showed harmonic patterns that corresponded exactly to the oldest known sacred music, specifically to 4th century Gregorian chants. It was as if the cave itself was singing, explains Paolo Mercuri, sound engineer. The frequency didn't come from any external source. It seemed to emanate from the limestone walls themselves. When we analyzed the recordings, we discovered harmonics that are theoretically impossible to produce naturally. But the most impressive aspect of this mystery was the effect the light had on the people present. Everyone reported a sensation of deep peace that remained with them for weeks after filming. Some described it as an experience of instantaneous emotional healing from traumas they had carried for years. Sarah Thompson, production assistant who had lost a child in a car accident 6 months earlier, reported that during the 20 minutes the light remained in the cave, she felt the presence of her dead child. "It wasn't imagination," insists Sarah. "I felt his hand in mine and heard his voice telling me he was okay and that I no longer needed to carry the guilt." Dr. Antonio Ricci, crew doctor, documented that several people experienced measurable physical changes during the event. Normalized blood pressure, stabilized heart rate, and, in 2 cases, chronic pain that disappeared completely. The phenomenon lasted exactly 20 minutes, the same time that, according to the Gospels, Jesus remained in the tomb before resurrection. When the light finally disappeared, it left a permanent mark on the cave stone, a luminous impression that remains visible to this day, even 2 decades later. Geology specialists were called to examine the mark on the stone. Professor Giovanni Martinelli from the University of Rome confirmed that the mark wasn't caused by heat, chemicals, or any known physical process. "The molecular structure of the stone was altered in a way we cannot explain," admits the professor. "It's as if the light had left a permanent signature in matter itself." The 6 mysteries of the Passion of the Christ weren't isolated events, but part of a larger pattern that continues impacting lives around the world. Each person who was present during filming carries with them an unshakable certainty that they participated in something much greater than a simple film. Mel Gibson, reflecting on the entire experience years later, admitted, "There are things that happened during that production that I'll never completely understand. To this day, no one can explain them. Maybe that's the point. Some mysteries shouldn't be explained, only lived." Jim Caviezel summarizes his experience in a way that touches the heart of any person of faith. Playing Jesus wasn't just an actor's job. It was an experience of personal encounter with the divine. "Each wound I received, each suffering I went through, each miracle I witnessed brought me closer to understanding who he really is." The mysteries continue. 2 decades later, people around the world still report supernatural experiences related to the film. Inexplicable healings, visions, conversions, and spiritual encounters that completely transform lives. The question that remains isn't whether these events really happened. The evidence is too abundant to be denied. The real question is, what do they mean for us today? How should we respond when the divine bursts into our reality in ways we cannot understand? The lasting impact of the 7 mysteries of the Passion of the Christ continues transforming lives 2 decades later. What began as inexplicable events during filming became a legacy of spiritual transformation that reaches millions of people around the world. Each person who witnessed these phenomena carries a deep certainty that they participated in something eternal, something that completely transcends the limits of ordinary cinema. Jim Caviezel today speaks openly about how playing Jesus changed not only his career, but his soul. "I'm no longer the same person I was before filming," admits the actor. "Carrying the cross, feeling the real physical pain, experiencing the supernatural phenomena. All of this transformed me in a way that's impossible to reverse." Now I know, without a shadow of doubt, that Jesus is real and that his love for us has no limits. The heart surgery's Caviezel needed after being struck by lightning revealed something extraordinary. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, cardiologist who operated on the actor, discovered that his heart had developed a unique electrical resistance. It was as if the lightning had left a permanent mark on his cardiovascular system, explains the doctor. But a mark that strengthened him, not one that harmed him. Jim Caviezel is prepared to return to the role of Jesus in the planned sequel, The Resurrection of Christ, which Gibson will begin filming soon. I know that playing Jesus again will bring new challenges and possibly new mysteries, says Caviezel. But I also know I'm being called to this. The events from the first filming prepared me for what's to come. The expectation for the sequel is immense, not only among fans of the original film, but among those who experienced spiritual transformation through the first work. Many wonder if new supernatural phenomena will accompany the filming of The Resurrection. If God chose to use the first film as an instrument of his grace, I believe he'll do the same with the sequel, predicts Father Bartunek. The mysteries we witnessed were just the beginning. The resurrection is an even more powerful story, and I expect God to manifest in even more extraordinary ways. The 6 mysteries of the Passion of the Christ remind us that we live in a universe much more mysterious and sacred than our rational mind usually accepts. They invite us to remain open to the impossible, to accept that our understanding of reality may be too limited to encompass all truth. For those who feel touched by these accounts, the message is clear. God still moves in our world in powerful and transformative ways. The mysteries of the Passion of the Christ weren't unique events in history, but examples of how the divine continues to burst into our reality when it finds open and willing hearts. The real question isn't whether we believe in these mysteries, but whether we're prepared to be transformed by them. As Matthew 7:7-8 reminds us, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened." The door remains open for each of us. The decision to cross it is ours. If these accounts touched your heart, don't forget to like this content, subscribe to our channel, and share your own reflections in the comments. Your support through Super Thanks helps us create more content that inspires and transforms lives. Join our community and stay connected for more revelations that feed the soul. The mysteries continue, spiritual transformation continues, and the invitation for a personal experience with the divine remains open for all of us.